Come down. Ooh, you make my high come down. Always tripping when you come around. Never have to cut you out like right now. You see, I don't have to drive me. You can say that for your mama. Maybe you should smoke some. Me try to marijuana. I was never you good. The vibe was straight. Showed you a couple of things and they feel strange. I treated you right. Everything was a gift from a time to your bag and the color on your lip.
Welcome to the Seahawks Man-to-Man podcast, powered by Blue Wire. Shout out to the new company. My name is Michael-Shawn and Christopher. You guys can follow me on whatever Elon Musk is calling that app these days. My @name has not changed. @Mike Dugar, MikeDugar. Shout out to everyone who is watching or listening via our YouTube channel. Seahawks Man-to-Man is the name of the channel. That is Seahawks Man, the number 2 man. Make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. It really means a lot, even if you are someone who consumes our podcast via audio platforms. Also follow us on Instagram. Seahawks Man-to-Man is the name of the channel. And on TikTok, Seahawks Man-to-Man is the name of the handle on there. I think I said channel last time. Doesn't matter. You know what I meant. Chris, go ahead and talk to him.
What is going on, everybody? It's your boy, Christopher Kidd. You can follow me on Twitter at CKIDD206, and that's CKID206.
All right, if you've noticed, you're following, you see this is an extra episode this week. We split up our one big thing. That episode dropped us on YouTube right now. It's on all audio platforms, so make sure you check that out as well. Chris and I did our one big thing after watching that awful film of the Bills beating up on the Seahawks. This week, we didn't want to just leave out the preview because this is a really big game this week for both clubs. So to preview Seahawks-Rams in week 9, we wanted to get our expert, one of our good friends, frequent guest of the Seahawks Man-to-Man podcast. She covers the Rams for The Athletic. Jourdan Rodrigue is joining the program.
Hi, guys.
Jourdan, welcome back. How are you?
I'm good. I was up kind of late last night. You know, World Series fireworks going off all through LA.
Oh, wow.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. That was big. Chris, wait, hold on. Chris, did you watch any of the World Series?
Absolutely not. Are you kidding me?
Oh my goodness. Jourdan, Chris is very not anti-baseball. It's just not his bag. What did you say the other day? You said how much would someone have to pay you to watch baseball? What was the number?
The bid starts at 50 bands.
50 bands. 50 bands. Yeah, it's a very high number. I love it though. I love the commitment to the bit. All right, let's talk Seahawks-Rams. A hashtag big game for both clubs. Can argue either way who it's bigger for, but it's definitely massive. For each team, we have a very good coaching matchup here. You know, Sean McVay was responsible for getting a lot of people, including Pete Carroll, fired. So the new guy is in. That is Mike Macdonald. And Sean McVay has a great deal of respect for the new man in Seattle. I want to play you guys a clip from Sean McVay doing an interview with the homie Robert Mays on the Athletic Football Show. I believe this is from the summer. This is he'll mess up Mike Macdonald's name. We'll get that. That's in the beginning, so don't worry about that. But Sean is talking about all the respect that he has for Mike Macdonald and his scheme defensively.
I had a ton of respect for Mike McDaniel and their coaching staff and those players that brought the stuff to life. What I think when you watch that team, there was a clear-cut identity. There was an understanding of the intent of what he was calling and how they could execute it. There was a great idea and understanding of how to utilize their personnel. I thought they rushed 4 as 1 as well as anybody. I mean, like they had a great ability to be able to play off of one another. I thought Mike did a great job of mixing in, pressures, understanding situations, understanding how to attack protections. I thought they did a great job of playing coverages where you're like, I don't know what the hell I'm going against because of the way they're teaching guys. They teach an understanding of how route concepts distribute and how you don't have to work as hard throughout the course of the down to allow things to be able to progress. You felt like you were playing against 13 players sometimes, but really overall, I thought they were such a well-coordinated and a well-executed defense from the players to the coaches. And I respect the coordinators the most, that you can see an intent behind what they're trying to get done. And I thought that showed up consistently on his tape.
Selfishly, I am excited that I get to watch.
Yeah, no, and I am too as a competitor. But it's gonna be a great challenge. And shoot, he's got some pretty damn good players to work with in Seattle. That I know there's some positive buzz coming out of there.
That was a lot. I love that clip, though. There's a lot of elements of it. Let's see. 3 things. We go through 3 things after listening to that before we toss to Jourdan. One, Chris, it is just hilarious how many of the things that Sean McVay complimented Mike Macdonald on about his defense that are currently not happening. In Seattle, there is no identity. It does look like they are not well coordinated. It doesn't look like they're teaching guys route concepts very well. They could be, it just doesn't look like it. The second thing, McVay and I both recently got married, not to each other. That sounded weird. But he's playing with his ring. For those people who see on YouTube, you can see him fiddling with his ring finger. I guess that's just me, a new husband thing, because I do that quite a bit. I'm not wearing my ring currently to avoid that problem on the air. Yeah, that was a fascinating deep dive there. The third thing, Jourdan, who talks to you, you could just feel the reverence there. You really could. Like, he wasn't just BSing coach speak. Oh, let me talk up another coach in the division. This guy really, really either fears the hell out of Mike Macdonald or respects the hell out of him. And I feel like, Jourdan, it might be a little of both.
Yeah, it's interesting. Also, Sean McVay has no poker face. So if he was coach speak respect versus authentic respect, you would definitely know the difference. This was the real deal. Yeah, I think first and foremost, he respects just how similar Mike Macdonald when he was in Baltimore. And this was the second year of that defense in Baltimore when the Rams faced them and kind of took them all the way down to the wire last season, deep into the winter. That version of the defense in its second year was very similar to Sean McVay's offense philosophically, in the sense that it's a lot more complex looking to the other side of the ball than the defense feels internally that it is. Now, they're doing a lot of things. They were simulating a lot of different pressures. They were sending different pressure, mixing their coverages in different ways. Their front structures were really interesting. But at the same time, and the inside linebackers were doing a ton of work for them as well. But it all kind of came out of looks that seemed to blend together, looks that seemed to disguise this could be this, but it could also be that. The illusion of complexity, where on the one side of the ball, it's essentially simple to the defense and they can play fast and free because everything connects to another thing. And it all marries together very well in their minds. On the other side, that's what Sean McVay's offense is predicated on. So I think he respected that first and foremost. But then also, I think he respected everything he'd heard about how Mike Macdonald teaches it. Now, again, reiterating, that was the second year of that defense that he faced. And you had heard things trickling out of that building about the teaching progression, how organized Mike Macdonald is, and how he layers things together in ways that truly build something. It doesn't just put quick fixes or patches on things, but like truly build something inclusive to, okay, at the end of the season, what other personnel do we need to make this thing sing and going to get those players? So I think that's what's interesting, because it's very clear this is still in the teaching part of the progression in Seattle right now, right? And then I know there's been some inconsistencies, some injuries too, right? So, and in that way, I think that's been a part of the struggle, but I do know those are the reasons why Sean McVay respects Mike Macdonald, because he respects really good teachers and really good communicators. And he also respects that this defense, the scheme, has the capability of doing so much, but keeping things very simple for the players once it clicks with them.
I want to pivot to Matthew Stafford, because he's had to endure, dare I call it, hell. His first 3 weeks of the season, he was sacked 10 times, and the offensive line gave up 39 pressures. And is that offensive line healed? Is it getting better? Because for some reason, against the Minnesota Vikings, only 4 quarterback pressures and no sacks, and Matthew Stafford lit them up, 279, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception. So is that offensive line getting better? Am I missing something here? What's going on over there with the offensive line?
Yeah, they're only partially healed, which is why what they're doing right now is so interesting, because at the beginning of the year, they were missing their left tackle, Alaric Jackson. He was suspended. Rob Havenstein couldn't play the first game. He's a right tackle and one of their captains. He couldn't play the first game because he was coming back from an ankle injury. And he's still I think he's being held together by layers of athletic tape, but he's playing really, really well. And then, they missed Steve Avila went down in the Detroit game. Now, not only is he their starting left guard and an absolute blossoming star in this league, of any player, let alone offensive lineman, he also unlocked the totality of their screen game, right? Especially some of the blocking structures downfield, because for his size, he's a really quick guy. He moves really fast. And then Jonah Jackson, who they traded for in the offseason, who they signed in the offseason in free agency, He suffered a shoulder injury. And so they basically were on their third center, their fourth guard, left guard, their second right tackle, their third left tackle at various points in the beginning of the year. Well, now, even though they're playing still their third center, and he is a rookie six-round pick out of Arkansas named Bo Limmer, and they're also playing a rookie undrafted free agent left guard named Justin Dedich, who was most recently Caleb Williams' center at USC. They're playing really well together. They're cohesive. And part of it was Rob Havenstein sat down with Sean and the offensive line coaches during the bye, like right before players broke for the bye week. And they just talked about like how to accentuate and protect in different ways and how to accentuate the strengths that the line did have together, which a lot of it's coming on the right side because Kevin Dotson is like a stalwart and an unmovable person. And Rob Havenstein's feeling better than he has. Alaric Jackson's holding it down on the left side. And then Justin Dedich, he's built more like the previous iteration of Rams linemen who are smaller framed, but fast. So, okay, maybe this guy can help us unlock our screen game that we haven't really had and help us with the quick game. How can we send running back Kyron Williams on different types of pressure protection, including not just chipping on the outside or on the wider gaps, but also in the interior? You saw that on the tape last week. He's helping chip with the center, like he's helping do these different things. And how can they use the tight ends in different ways and deploy different personnel? So they went back and they did all this. And then against the Raiders, they only allowed one sack, and it was kind of a fluky moment. Max Crosby looped around the interior after breaking free from somebody else, and then Stafford got killed. But they have only allowed 13 pressures in the last 2 games, and those are really, really tough defenses in the Raiders and the Vikings. So this line is really kind of coming together in a cohesive way for the first time all year. And the irony is, again, they're doing it with 2 like very low round, if round at all, draft picks or undrafted on the interior on that left side.
Ooh, that was a lot, Chris. That was a lot of undrafted. That was a lot of rookie.
Yeah.
That was a lot of late pick in the descriptions of those players. I feel like that's a window into some good news for the Seahawks. I have some good news for Seahawks fans later, but I wanted to quantify that. No, Jourdan just mentioned a fascinating number there about the number of pressures that Stafford has. At the number of times he's been pressured in the last couple of weeks, 13 or 14 in the last 2 weeks against the Raiders and Vikings.
It's 13 via True Media. It is 14 via Next Gen Stats, often incongruent with each other for whatever reason. So
yeah, it's random nerd. Got to peek behind the curtain for our listeners here. I will always go True Media just because I use that for every other stats. But yeah, Next Gen is a little funky with what they consider a pressure. Sometimes I'll look and be like, that's not a pressure. Anyway.
Also, like Stafford does not move. So like, he stepped back another step. Oh, pressure, like it's easier to say, oh, that's a pressure against a guy who doesn't really move unless he's forced to. So.
Yeah, and one time I asked Clint Hurt when he was the D-line coach, actually when he was the defensive coordinator for the Seahawks, I was like, how do you guys define a pressure? And he was like, it's when they get the quarterback off his spot. And I was like, well, different quarterbacks, you can apply that differently. Some guys move their own spot. That's just kind of how they get down versus, Stafford, Kirk Cousins, Jared Goff types are just like, this is my spot. I shall not move, type of thing. But to quantify that, so let's go with either 13 or 14 pressures in the last. That's 2 games, right? So for Seahawks fans, you guys remember the Niners game. Bosa in that game had 14 pressures on Geno by himself in that game. So that just shows you the gap there and what these guys had to deal with in certain situations. But Chris, that does sound like if there is some good news for the Seahawks trying to get to Stafford, find the guys whose things say undrafted, late pick. Not to say they just stink because they're late draft picks and stuff, but I mean, hey, you got to get to Stafford somehow, right? You know what'll happen if you don't.
Oof. Speaking in terms of, well, actually, screw all that. Puka, Nacua, Cooper Kupp are back. And the run game is, how would you say your run game for the Rams is, Jourdan, right now?
Well, I think it's coming together better in what they envisioned for it, especially with some of those linemen having played together for a couple weeks in a row. Like Kyron Williams' touchdown streak remains technically intact. He had a passing touchdown this last week, but he's had a rushing touchdown or a passing touchdown, and sometimes both in every game so far this season. So their rushing success rate has been good. They just haven't been getting really, really big plays in the run game. And part of that has been a lot of the inconsistency along the offensive line. But it's coming together a lot better. And they really want to be physical. You know, they have to get their full complement of offensive linemen, particularly those big guys, back on the interior in order to do that. But they really want to be a physical rushing team the way that they were all throughout 2023 and continue carrying through some of those inside runs, the duo runs. Kyren Williams and Puka Nacua and their tight ends love running duo together. And that's Kyron's favorite run for good reason. He's very good at it. And it's kind of becoming a cheat code run of sorts for them, like it was all through 2023. So at the same time, you know, they consider their screen game now, over the last couple of years, they've considered their screen game an extension of their outside zone rushing game. Some coaches do this a lot of times from that tree. You know, Shanahan kind of does this too, where he's like, oh yeah, our passing screens are actually runs, like outside zone runs. So they kind of, it's a mixed group of concepts now, whereas it was one thing or the other through a lot of years of Sean McVay's tenure, but they've still doubled down and tripled down into this new world that they're in, where it's a lot of inside concepts, a lot of pre-snap differences in formations, inclusive to the pistol formation that Mike knows that I love. And so that's and a lot of motions in the run game using their tight ends, and also Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp really unlock a lot of that for them.
Yeah, see, that's my concern. The Seahawks have been really bad at tackling pretty much the last month, and Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua, they don't really have ability to make you miss per se, but they are very physical and they don't go down on first contact. And when I'm watching the tape, watching Spoon miss tackles, watching Julian Love miss tackles, my concern is these guys are going to get loose because they are so good in those short space situations. That's where they thrive, where they throw screens, where Cooper does maybe an out route for 4 yards and it's 13 because he's just not going down. Is there a chance that we could see the Rams trying to attack the Seahawks in the pass game? Maybe Sean McVay says, you know what, I know the run defense is trying to get to a better situation, but I like my chances going with the pass. Or is that just, no, he's going to run the football with Kyren?
I think with McVay, whereas it used to be he really loved to pass the ball, and he still does, especially if you have a quarterback who can make every throw like Geno can. And I know that's been a topic too, is like, okay, just because you can make every throw, should you have to? I don't know. And so, you know, but I think, and Matthew Stafford is one of those players too, obviously. But I think it's interesting where you'd see Sean McVay sort of give in to like the devil on one shoulder and say, okay, I'm just going to throw it 6,000 times in this game because I can. And then they forgot about their run game over 2021 and 2022. 2021, it worked out fine for them, but 2022 is a disaster. And so then like they rebuilt their run game. And now I think he gets this, like, I think career satisfaction or like enjoyment in a win if they can run the ball physically. You remember the opener last year against Seattle, where Seattle, I mean,
Boy,
they were,
do we.
yeah, and it's not like it's not like even the run game was stacking up highly efficient plays or even chunk yards, but they were just hitting, right? And they were moving the line of scrimmage. And that's where I think that to Sean, that neutralizes a crowd, that neutralizes a pass rush, that neutralizes a lot of things that they're trying to make sure that they can extend Stafford through the end of the season, at least, if not more. So I wouldn't be surprised if this was a run heavy game. Now, I will say Minnesota, I thought, was going to be an extremely run heavy game because I thought they were going to bring different types of pressure. They didn't. They simulated a lot of stuff, but they actually didn't bring a lot of pressure because they were trying to protect the middle of the field against Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp. And then they drew extra coverage attention on Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp as well, which sprang Demarcus Robinson free. And when he has Cooper and Puka on the field, Demarcus is a really solid number 3. And he was making some tough catches, and Stafford was going to him a lot. He's the best, probably the best receiver working out of structure with the quarterback if pressure does come. You know, it is really, it's been interesting because this is last week, the Vikings game was exactly what we all expected the Rams offense to look like through the entire season, barring the injuries. But I went into that game thinking, oh, they're going to run the ball a lot. They did. They ran the ball a good amount and they ran it well. But they showed no fear throwing against some of those heavier, like those more DB heavy coverages when they would drop 8 or go in those Tampa 2 kind of hybrid looks. Stafford showed no fear in throwing into those situations either.
You know why he has no fear? Because he's never lost to the Seahawks since he's got to the Rams. That's why. I was looking this up.
I was trying to think about, is that real? Like I was trying to
Yeah.
think, has he, my goodness.
He's undefeated.
Yeah, I was doing some research yesterday because I was like, man, McVay, man, it's a bad boy. And then I was looking at the game log and I was like, look at all these W's. I was like, well, here's how I got there. I was like, how'd they beat these guys? Which is so sad that I had to work backwards from that thought. But then I clicked on the box scores and I was like, oh, they played John Wolford. I was like, oh, well, that makes sense. And then I was like, okay, I remember the Week 18 game because that was Baker and Quandre had the pick. I was like, oh, so they've never actually beaten Stafford. He is 4-0 against the Seahawks. He won the game where Russ broke his finger, and then he won. They won the game too. I think this next one was down in Los Angeles. I think there might have been the COVID Tyler Lockett couldn't play game that was on like a Tuesday or something, I believe. And the Rams won that, and then both games last season. So yeah, Stafford is 4-0 against the Seahawks since joining the Rams. Seattle's 2 wins are only against teams quarterbacked by John Wolford and Baker Mayfield by a combined 7 points. And one of those games was in overtime, the one over Baker. So yeah, it's been so. Chris, to answer your question too, piggyback on Jordan. That boy McVay, whatever shoulder says throw, I can see him going with that one. And also, Chris, I think you just came up with a great nickname. They're in Hollywood, they're LA, Hollywood. They do that where they combine everybody's names when they're dating. I like Cooper Nacua. Let's go with that.
Cooper Nacua. That's good. I like that.
Cooper
yeah.
Nacua. It
An honest mistake.
Sounds like a real person.
Jordan, I am 2 for 2 with honest mistakes. You know when you wear a bracelet on your wrist?
Yes.
I called it a chain. What did I say, Mike? I said something crazy. I said a wrist
necklace.
No, I said something, and Mike was like, "That's low key kind of fire." I'm like, "No."
Yeah, I think it was wrist necklace or something like that.
It was really bad, and Mike just was like, "No, that's great. I love it." And I'm like,
"Great." It was fire. It sounded like a 2 Chainz bar.
And then today, I screw up the names, Cooper Nacua, and he's like, "Wait a minute."
That's also bad. Good though. That's good. Lean into it, Chris. Lean into it.
I'm trying to, but when I play it back in my head, I'm like, that was really bad. So, okay, keep it going, Mike.
That's all right. Mike implied that he and Sean McVay are married earlier in the show. So.
That's true. That's true. I did. I want to get something on the defense before we get to our highly anticipated prediction from Jordan. Also, our over/under. Because, Chris, this is the good news, bad news portion of the show for the Seahawks fans. The good news is Aaron Donald is gone. Like, he's not coming back. That is perhaps the greatest news in Seahawks history, I can imagine, at least since Super Bowl 48. Because this guy is a monster. I'm talking about getting people fired. I saw a picture the other day of, like, Geno's elbow from when he got hurt. I forgot he got hurt against the Rams. I know he got hurt against the Giants, but I forgot. And obviously, Russ broke his finger against the Rams. Both, Aaron Donald, monster. So good news, guys. He's gone, not coming back. He's chilling with his wife. It's great. Bad news is they have a bunch of other badass defensive linemen across the front, and now there are just numbers of them. It's not just 199 and then a bunch of other complementary pieces. It's a bunch of killers. So, Chris, here are of guys with at least 75 pass rush snaps, which that takes out like blitzers and stuff like that. Sorry, Jamal Adams. The league average pressure rate is 10%. Right? Getting to the quarter. That's the average baseline. That's the average. The Rams have 5 different dudes who are above the average. 5. Jared Verse, their rookie, who's second in the entire league. Byron Young, Braden Fisk, Michael Hoyt, love that name, and Kobe Turner. They're all above 11%, actually. Not just right. They're not just sneaking above it. So, Jordan, somehow, some way, Sean McVay has done a deal with the devil or whoever that as soon as he loses Aaron Donald, he still has a top 5 defensive line in football. What the hell?
Yeah. And like they were so fun to watch, even from the jump in training camp when they were trying to figure each other out. And obviously Braden Fisk and Jared Verse, they played together at Florida State. Part of the reason the Rams went out and got both of them and traded up for Braden Fisk was they were doing this thing in their scouting process where they were aggregating players. So they were saying, okay, we know we can't, this is like a bit money ball, but sort of they did it in their way where it was like, all right, we're not even gonna pretend that we can replace Aaron Donald. That's just laughable. Nobody could. but how can we rebuild production? And how can we also like fast forward chemistry? Like how can we quantify chemistry first of all? And then also can we fast forward like the year or so it takes for a lot of times rushers to get to know each other, particularly if they're playing next to each other, and press the fast forward on that. So they look at different collectives of players. What they were always going to do if the board fell a certain way is go either D tackle pass rusher or pass rusher D tackle. And so they were looking at combinations of players together as a 1-2. And naturally, Jared Verse and Braden Fisk, who were teammates at Florida State and extremely productive together, the chemistry jumps off the tape almost every snap. They really stood out to them. So when they got Jared Verse, they immediately were like, okay, our next guy is Braden Fisk. It was really funny. There was Stan Kroenke owns a bunch of teams, as you guys know, and there were visitors from other teams at the draft house. And I was upstairs talking to one of the executives, and one of the people from another team runs in the room, is all excited. This is before day 2 starts. And he's like, oh, going to be an exciting day, huh? Here you guys are trading up for that D tackle from Florida State. And me and the executive are just like silent. And I turn to the executive, I'm like, can I use that? Because it was like this guy from a totally different sport came in and broke this news so innocently to a reporter standing in the room about what the conversation was happening in the war room at that time. So it was like, it was a known thing, right? They were always going to get him. And now you can sort of see those dividends pay off. And then also moving Kobe Turner back to nose. Now he had been playing some 3-tech, but he was getting pressure there, but it's just better for all of them communication wise, because he is a captain. He's an anchor point on that defensive line if he is playing in the nose and still getting above league average pressure rate, which is incredible to me in second year D tackle. And they work. They're young, they're excited, they're energetic, they like each other. They're extremely physical. Jared Verse, if you put like an ISO cam on his tape, watching game over game over game, you could always see the talent and the potential. But now he's playing a cleaner game in that he's not overcommitting on play actions as much anymore. He's actually cleaning up his pressure and getting pressure to sack versus pressure. And then, there's an elusiveness that sometimes was escaping him at times. And they're feeling each other out. Michael Hoyt's playing like 16 different positions on that defense as well. And so it just kind of works, right? They had to get their feet under them a little bit. And it is a new world without Aaron Donald. There's a lot of versatility though along that defensive line, a lot of guys who can move inside, outside. And so I think that's what helps too, is you're not really quite sure at any given point, like where the pressure will come from, which I think is a big benefit to them.
And that is bad news for Seattle. Triple down on the bad news before we go to the prediction and over under. None of those.
What a cheerful show we have today.
Yeah, well, we'll get to some. We sprinkled in some good there. Yeah. It's basically a game of the trenches, really. It's like, can you get to Stafford and protect Geno, which is generally the story of every Seahawks game. Can you protect Geno? It's like a little flow chart. Like, did you protect Geno? Yes. Then you won. Did you protect Geno? No, you lost. Did you get to whoever the opposing quarterback is? Yes, you won. Like, it's a very simple formula for Seahawks wins and losses, unfortunately. And I believe Michael Wilhoit, I think, is the oldest of all those guys I named. I think he's 27, the only one headed for free agency after this season. So everyone else is going to be around kicking ass for a while. All right, we've broken down the offense. We got the defense. It's time, Chris, for our much anticipated Jourdan Rodrigue Seahawks man-to-man game prediction and over-under. You ready, sir?
Let's do it. Where do you want to start, Mike?
Just give me, you know how to break them all down. Just before we go with the over-under, give us the record. We don't need all the line items, just the record for our beat reporters on over-under so far.
Reporters win-loss record 4-3 straight up, 4-3 on the spread. And when it comes to over-under, shout out to Catherine. You got them up 1. You're now 4-5. So tough love, but let's see if we can get back to 500.
All right. Pressure's on Jourdan to get our guests back to 500. All right. This week's over-under is 148.5 combined receiving yards for Cooper Nacua. What you got? What do you got, George? See, I got that new nickname in there.
Yeah, I love it. That was nice. That was a nice one. I'm going to hit the over just because I've seen Puka especially. Cooper hasn't really broken a game open lately in the last couple of years, but he's super valuable with the attention that he draws, which gives Puka more opportunities. So I can definitely see them hitting the over on this. I'm going to go ahead and pick the over, and see what happens with our guys, Cooper Nacua.
Chris, you heard that too, right? That was a Seahawks man-to-man jinx for the second week in a row. Because now Cooper's going to blow the game open, just like you jinxed Josh Allen last week into throwing a pick.
Hey, it worked
that
out.
was good. Yeah, it did. You did a good job there. All right. The line is funky on this one. It's gone from Seahawks were favored at one point, then the Rams were favored by a half point. I think right now it's a pick 'em.
Let me double check for you. Let me pull it up.
It's weird. Vegas has just no faith in the Seahawks.
So yeah, it's actually the Rams -1.
Wow.
Favored on the road. Yeah. Well, that just
wow.
means Vegas expects the Seahawks to lose. They are the underdog at home, which is crazy. So with that said, Jordan, give us your prediction. What is going to happen on Sunday? Who's going to win and what will be the score?
Yeah, I really saw so much potential in what they did against Minnesota. And you could see the identity that they were always supposed to have entering the year. So if they can carry that forward, then I'll definitely double down and believe in that, and they can get hot at the right time. I'm going to pick the Rams in this game. They went over 21 points for the second time all season last week against Minnesota, and I think they are feeling themselves after that. So I'm going to get them at 27. And then I think the Seahawks are going to score a little bit, particularly if DK plays, although Darius Williams could have a big impact on this game, as he always does. And so I'm going to go 27-17 Rams.
Ooh, we got another double-digit loss at the crib for the Seahawks. That would be very detrimental to a lot of people on the payroll if that happens. But very, very plausible or feasible, whatever word we'd like to use there. All right, Chris, you got that written down. We're gonna hold Jordan to that. And if that happens, we make sure to send all of the Rams and Seahawks people to Jordan. Let them know this was not us. This was our guest. All right. There we go. We got our prediction in there. All right. Jordan, floor is yours. Before we close out, podcast, any stories coming up, anything you just want to plug, the floor belongs to Jordan.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for having me. First of all, I love doing this twice a year at least, and we've had some fun ones. Yeah, so I work on special projects for The Athletic as well as my Rams coverage. I'm the host of and creator of the Play Callers series, so we do interviews weekly, but then also short form and long form audio documentaries. I am on NFL Daily on Wednesdays with Greg Rosenthal and Colleen Wolfe and Steve Weich, and over at NFL Network. And with Mike, we have a blast on Thursdays previewing around the entire league on the Heed the Call podcast with Dan Hansis and Mark Sessler. Sometimes I eat and sometimes I sleep as well. And I'm having a blast this year. So thanks for having me, guys.
Absolutely.
Of course. We got to keep your podcast appearance count higher than the homie Matt Barrows.
That's all I care about.
You are already +1 on Matt, who does a great job covering the Niners. Because they played on a Thursday, we couldn't squeeze in Matt that week, although I think we might have him shortly after the bye week. So he's going to catch you. Just letting you know you are up currently, though.
I'll get him again at the end,
That's true. You will. Final week of the season, I believe. So thank you, Jordan, so much for the insight, for the good news and the bad news as we preview this matchup. Thank you guys for tuning in to the Seahawks Man to Man podcast. Make sure you like, subscribe on YouTube. We're available on all audio platforms. I'm Mike. That's Chris. Thank you to Jordan. Chris and I will come back with our YouTube exclusive only standout plays this week before we get to Seahawks-Rams post-game show where we talk about, according to Jordan, a loss in the Seahawks to the Rams. Until then, enjoy you guys' weekend. We will catch you next time. Peace.